personality here, and he will preach the glories of Jagannath all over the world. On hearing such an auspicious blessing, Mother Bhagavati began to shed tears of joy and started thanking those Brahmins and Lord Jagannath. On that same day, after the Rath Yatra, the child had the first grain-eating ceremony. According to the name of Lord Jagannath's consort, Bimala Devi, the child was named Bimala Prasad. Bimala Devi is the maintainer of Sri Jagannath Kshetra and the principal goddess of the temple. At that time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was as a magistrate under the British government. Srimad Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a very pious and well-behaved personality. His wife, Sri Bhagavati Devi, too, was a devoted lady. Other than the Lord's prasad, they never allowed their children to eat any other unoffered foodstuffs. They never allowed the children to speak about worldly topics and associate with worldly people. During that period, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur inundated the land with the flowing of the Ganges water in the form of preaching pure devotional service, as inaugurated by Gaura Sundara. He composed and published many devotional literatures and inaugurated Prapana ashrams and namhatas at different places. In the year 1881, a deity of Kurma was found while digging the foundation of Bhakti Bhavan at Rambagan, Kolkata. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave that Kurma deity to Sri Saraswati Thakur along with the holy name and mantra, and instructed him on how to serve the deity. He would have been 7 years of age then, at that point, when he received the mantra, the name, the mantra, and the deity, of course. Saraswati Thakur was very intelligent, and so he completed the study at Sanskrit College within a short time. He studied Sanskrit especially from a Vedic scholar, Sri Prithvidhara Sharma. Thereafter, he himself started a school of astrology. Many students from high-class families studied in that school. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ordered Srila Saraswati Thakur to worship Hari and vigorously preach the teachings of Sri Chaitanya. In his childhood, Saraswati Thakur visited all the places related to the associates of Gaura, situated within Gauramandal, with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. In the year 1900, during the month of March, Saraswati Thakur travelled with Bhaktivinoda Thakur to places like Baleshwar, Remuna, Bhuvaneshwara and Puri, and explained Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita at different places under the order of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. On 9th Ashad 1321 Bengali era, on Sri Gadadhar Pandit's disappearance day, Srimad Bhaktivinoda Thakur Mahashaya entered into the Lord's eternal pastimes. That was 1914, year of our Lord, 1914. Our Lord. Before he entered into eternal pastimes, he instructed Saraswati Thakur to spread the literatures written by the 6 Goswamis, to develop Mayapur, the birthplace of Mahaprabhu, and to preach Gaura Sundar's teachings everywhere. 1 year after Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur's disappearance, on that same day, Mother Sri Bhagavati Devi returned to the eternal abode. She too, at the time of leaving the world, caught hold of Saraswati Thakur's hand and said, "You must preach the topics of my Gaura Sundara everywhere in Sri Dham Mayapur." Sri Saraswati Thakur accepted spiritual initiation from Sri Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Mahashai. He never encouraged the mundane philosophy, Sahajiavad and Mayavad. In the year 1918, 7th of March, on the appearance day of Sri Gaura, he accepted sannyas at Sri Dham Mayapur and also established the Sri Chaitanya Mat on that same day. After sannyas, he became renowned as Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada restarted the propagation of Sri Gaur Krishna's topics with great vigour all over India. Within a short time, Srila Prabhupada established about 66 pure devotional centres or mutts in Calcutta, Dhaka, Mymensingh, Narayanganj, Chittagong, Cuttack, Midnapur, Remuna, Baleshwara, Bhuvaneshwara, Puri, Alalanath, Madras, Kabul, Delhi, Bombay, Kurukshetra, Lucknow, Patna, Gaya, Kashi, Haridwar, Allahabad, Mathura, Vrindavan, and other important places in India, as well as places outside India like Rangoon, London, and awarded the renounced Order of Life or sannyas to 25 persons highly educated in Eastern and Western education. He edited and published about 6 daily, weekly, fortnightly, and monthly spiritual magazines in English, Hindi, Oriya, and Assamese language. On 1937, 1st January, Friday, during Brahma Muhurta, the sun-like Vaishnavacharya disappeared from this world. Like his predecessor Acharyas, Sri Ramanuja, Sri Madhva, Sri Vishnu Swami, and Sri Nimbarka, he was a matchless lion-like Acharya for preaching the philosophy of Achinta Bheda Bhed. Just brief.
So what did it say there? Like Ramanuja Acharya?
Like the 4 Vaishnavacharyas, he was a matchless lion-like Acharya for preaching the philosophy of Achinta Bheda Bhed.
But they, I mean, it's not saying that they were preaching Achinta Bheda Bhed.
No, that he was a matchless lion-like Acharya. Like them, yeah.
A matchless lion
like, yeah.
There's 4 of them.
They called him Nrsimha Guru. No, they're all matchless.
They're all matchless.
Each one's more matchless than the other one. It's a spiritual concept. Sorry. Now that part there where it said he would be giving talks on explaining Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita in the presence of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You know, like he would say, "Oh, you speak," you know. And that was only 16 years of age at that time. And it reminds me of when, as Srila Govinda Maharaj said, that Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, you know, when he was younger in Grihastha life, and they'd be preaching in Calcutta and they'd go to different programs. And, you know, because Srila Prabhupada, Swami Maharaj is, you know, Bhaktivedanta, a very learned person and scholarly type person. So he would make, he was in white cloth at that time, so he would make Govinda Maharaj sit up on the higher seat because he was brahmachari, and then he would, Govinda Maharaj would tell the verse in Sanskrit, and then Swami Maharaj would give the purport, explanation. So it's reminded me of that, yeah.
But there, Saraswati Thakur is doing the explanation.
Yes.
So
The son and the father, son and father. This is, so sometimes it's like that, you know. That was just in respect to the cloth, yes? That's why, yeah. So then,
But at that point, Saraswati Thakur wouldn't have been wearing saffron, right?
no.
They were just all wearing white at that.
Yeah.
In that historical context.
So what should I do, read something?
Speak.
Hari Bol.
You mentioned 66 months all of a sudden.
Usually they say 64, don't they?
64 total, but this
It said 66. Well, that was in his lifetime.
He was saying he would rather hold above that the temple in the heart of the devotee.
Oh,
Isn't it?
okay.
He made a point, I think.
Oh, yes.
He made a point, didn't he, saying that? I read
Yeah.
Yeah.
the heart. The temple is
Yeah,
one thing.
all right.
They must
Manasa Mandir.
make
Yeah,
temples
okay.
in the heart.
Right.
But what was it in every town and village? And then he said, not every town and village. I want to make a temple in the heart of of every person.
Every person.
Yeah.
That's Maharaj.
Mahaprabhu is every kind of.
And then of course he was also, he was very, very keen on the Brihat Mridanga book distribution, and this idea was very much inherited by Srila Swami Maharaj. So much stress on that. And many other things, of course, things he did, establishing the temples, deity worship, Harinam, but he did have a special proclivity towards that. If you really want to please me, distribute my books, etc. And he said, my Guru Maharaj said, we can dismantle all these temples and sell all the marble bricks and to make books. And he had the press was actually in the room of the temple, not the temple room, but in the building of the temple, right? Correct? In Bhag Bazar Mat, I believe.
Yeah.
And this was the noise of the printing press was obviously very loud in those days. Nothing digital. It was like dum 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 dum. As we saw in Navadvip when I first went there, it was all very mechanical things, And they had to put each letter in the block, each letter backwards in the block, and then roll the ink over it like this, and then the paper then is going like this, So then, and some person, gave some comment, oh, this is very noisy. Wouldn't it be disturbing the deities? And he said, no, this is kirtan, This is the kirtan of Mahaprabhu. And this is the Brihat Mridangam, because the Mridangam you can hear it for 1 or 2 blocks. Sorry, that's an American expression, I don't know how we say in English. But the Brihat Mridanga is heard all over the world, you see, by the book distribution. Somebody can receive a book in London or Paris, Hong Kong, but not only that, then they go to other places. And then even if the people have the books in their shelves of their house, and even they're just standing there unread, but as Srila Prabhupada Swami Maharaj said, they're like time bombs. They'll be ticking away, ticking away, ticking away, and when the time's right, they will do their work, do their job. So most of us and most devotees have in fact got introduction to Christian consciousness in some way through the literature, and that literature we receive from a person, from a devotee. So it's ultimately very personal, that because even if you say I received a book, but that book was from a person. But even if we found a book on a table somewhere in a waiting room, in a doctor's waiting room, we read the book. But what's the book? The book is the mind of the person who's written the book, i.e. Srila Prabhupada or Sri. So
Paragraph is enough, actually. Well,
yes.
it can take you far, one paragraph.
Yes. So the thing about Saraswati Thakur was that he was in this transition period, really, between the classical old time of India and the traditional, very orthodox practice of Vaishnavism and etc., and this modern age, when he appeared. So he was the instrument selected by Gauranga Sundar and Krishna to help make that transition by adopting the various things of the modern age in the service of Krishna, in the line of akama karma yoga, as in Bhagavad Gita, everything to be used in the service of the Lord. So when one day in the temple, again I think this was in the Bhag Bazar Mat, and he was checking the proofs of his Chaitanya Charitamrita Anubhasya commentary coming off the press like this. There's all reams of paper, of course, in those days. And checking, and there were some senior devotees with him and disciples and that, and some devotee idea, this conception, everything yukta vairag, everything should be used for Krishna service.
All-encompassing.
Yes, and he rode in a motor car. And of course some people raised their eyebrows at that. people don't like change. People are slow to change, particularly those who are traditional and orthodox, in a very extreme way. And so we have to distinguish between as we say, the substance and the form. So the form may change in time. The form may change, but if the substance is maintained intact. So he would travel in a motor car in Vrindavan, and with a driver, like a chauffeur and everything, and he sent his devotees overseas to preach, and he would be in the temple. He'd have a chart on the wall. I don't know how he got that, some map of London, because apparently Calcutta, if you look at the layout, if you saw an aerial view of the streets with Dalhousie Square in the middle, and you have the streets coming out from it, it's a replica of London. The architects, English architects, they designed it on a similar way. And he had this map of London, and he would have the markers, and he'd say to the devotees, where do you think we should have the temple? Oh, this is Buckingham Palace, where the Queen lives, and maybe very near to that, and he'd put the marker there. Or maybe here, Piccadilly Circus and all these things. So he was always envisioning and planning like that. Then he sent the devotees, and there's a famous talk or speech he gave to them as they were leaving, And he said, you're going with the vendor's bag of the names of Hari, to deliver that to the people. You're not going for sightseeing or learning about other cultures and traditions, etc. But so his nature was very, very extremely one-pointed, and his expression of Christian consciousness very exclusive. And this was his famous statement, the Gaudiya Mat has come to declare war, not just against Maya, but against every existing conception of religion. Yeah. And this was a different angle of vision. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was more inclusive. Worshipping God, anyone in their own way, according to their own faith tradition, is very good, and ultimately they are worshipping Krishna, son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, yes. And in this beautiful bhajan in Gitanjali, he's saying, "Oh my brothers," speaking to his Bengali brothers, I guess, and co-religionists, why do you denigrate those of the foreign countries who worship God in different ways? Some worship in standing, some in kneeling position, some with the arms like this, with the shirt untucked at the back, some by in the yoga postures, but all are actually worshipping Krishna. That was his, you could say, view or vision, or his inclusive nature in his preaching. And in Saraswati Thakur, it seemed like it was narrowed to a point of great exclusivity by establishing the mats. These are the centres of seva, of Krishna consciousness. And those who are in the mat, they're full-time servitors. Those times would be, brahmacharis, sannyasis, etc. And then from there, others, all devotees, surrounding, dedicated devotees, they're coming for seva, and this is more the mood. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajan, he's telling all the time, when I see Tulasi Devi being worshipped in my home, it becomes Goloka Vrindavan, and these things. So here we have two apparently different conceptions that can be harmonized in Krishna consciousness, because as you know, everything can be harmonized in Krishna consciousness, according to the philosophy of Achincha Bhed Abhed, oneness and difference. And so, different devotees in time, will tend to have a mood tending more to one side or the other, or perhaps both inclusive. Like Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, both sides. in one way, very strict about things and very exclusive, but in another way also very liberal and inclusive, as preaching in the Western world, where
Even accommodated meat-eaters.
accommodating, yeah.
Just to get them.
That, but this was actually Saraswati Thakur. If you,
Yes.
that was, in contrast to that what we've just said, right? On the other side, yes, if they will come, make a hostel, and so they will come for hearing about Krishna, and even they can be provided with meat if that is their custom. So they will hear about Krishna consciousness. That's very inclusive, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not exclusive. Extremely.
But Siddhanta very
Yeah.
strict.
So I think we have to look at it that in the front and externally and with the devotees he had that strictness, but his heart was very, very soft. That's why we mentioned before he was saying the lion-like guru, the Shinga guru they called him. He was like a thunderbolt to the atheists, non-believers and offenders, but like a rose. Soft like a rose with the devotees. His quality like that, and so even Srila, my own guru, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and when he joined, there's accounts of, when he joined the mission and their first meeting and so on. And he said himself, as coming from a Bhattacharya Brahmin lineage, Sridhar Maharaj, and there's different sects of Brahmins, as you know, in India. And specifically the Bhattacharyas, they're like pundits, scholars. As we know, Sridhar Maharaj is very, very scholarly. People used to come to him for that, for elucidation of the Shastra, finer points. He was given the name Shastra Nipun by Saraswati Thakur, like a title, meaning who dives deep in the Shastra. Like someone, if you dive deep, if you in the sea, if you just go near the surface, on the surface, or a little bit under, you get something. But if you dive deep, right in the bottom, you find the pearl, the hidden pearl, isn't it? It's like the hidden things inside the Shastra that a superficial reading wouldn't show. Because the Shastra is also on different levels, several, mainly 3 levels. We can't go into that now, but so he was like that, the one who could really find the substantial meaning of things. And so when he joined, he said in his biography, Sridhar Maharaj had some initial reluctance because Saraswati Thakur from Kayasth caste, and Kayasth they're like Vaishya caste, merchant caste, or higher level Kayasth, right?
They're considered Shudra actually, traditionally.
Oh, okay.
They're on the level, yeah.
Okay. So he said I had some reluctance, and also, same thing with Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, when someone was trying to persuade him to go and see and hear from Saraswati Thakur, so many sadhus telling so many things, and most of them are just not they're not right, bogus or... So some reluctance initially. But he said when I went there and I saw him, and in his association, I immediately understood, this person he's nothing to do with anything, material things. He's a Vaikuntha. He's come from Vaikuntha. There's one book, it's entitled Ray of Vishnu. It's the life of Saraswati Thakur. They've called it A Ray of Vishnu. Right? So, Jiva soul, like normally we say the son of Krishna, it's an analogy. If Krishna is like the sun, Bhagavan, and the rays of the sun, so many rays, it looks like they're actually indistinguished. If you look at it, it looks like a massive light. But actually inside that there's individual rays, right? And inside those individual rays are points of light. So that's like the Jiva souls. Whereas Saraswati Thakur is like a ray of light, a kirana. Kirana means a ray. So yes, Jivatma, but something more than that as well. That's why Srila Maharaj said we say Bhagavan Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Not that he's Bhagavan, because Bhagavan means, the Lord, but he's a Vibhinangsa. Vibhinangsa means a Jiva soul, but something more than that, because empowered by the Swarup Shakti of the Lord. Definitely, what he did was not really possible. And that empowerment, of course, was transferred to Srila A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Prabhupada in a very special way, and all his sannyasi disciples. We've heard in this song about Sri Maharaj, the emperor of sannyasi kings, Yati Rajeshvara. Yati means a wandering mendicant, supposedly, or sannyasi. Rajeshvara, you're the Raj Ishvara, means the king, and Ishvara, the lord of the kings, the emperor, in other words, of, yeah, so but there were many. We mentioned there are 25 sannyasis, and they're all very prominent, and all had a big part to play in the early days of the mission, the Gaudiya Math, Srila Maharaj's godbrothers. But the time we came to Srila Maharaj, the majority of them had already left the world, but there was a few left there, Paramahamsa Maharaj, Yajava Maharaj still living, and some grand disciples, disciples of Saraswati Thakur, Damodar Maharaj and others. But slowly they were going, and then Sri Maharaj said, I feel like I'm the last tree left in a forest, They've all gone. So we think Sri Maharaj is so great, and he is so great, but also he had much love and affection and naturally association from his godbrothers, of course. It's like that, relative and absolute. From the disciples' point of view, you will see the Guru as absolute. That's why sometimes when Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami, went to India, and the devotees in the West, like New York, London, all these big cities, their only experience of like Indian gurus or teachers was Srila Prabhupada, and he was it, he was totally it. And they saw him sitting very humbly with Sri Maharaj, with him, next to him, not at his feet, but in a chair, and looking to Sri Maharaj as my elder godbrother and my senior. And they were like, whoa, what's this, So that relative conception is also there, as well as absolute, both. So sometimes, we have to harmonize in this way. Like when he was in Mayapur, Srila Prabhupada, before the temple was built, and he just had a thatched hut, which is, they still keep that hut now in his honour. It's next to the gate of the Chandrodaya Mandir. As you come in, it's on the left, thatched hut. So he just had that, and you just have throw down his chadar and sit down, like a sadhu baba, simple sadhu baba, And so it's like that. And when Srila Govinda Maharaj was there, when Srila Prabhupada came to India with his disciples and was having prasad, and they serving everything nicely, so many pots and things like that. And he's sitting, taking prasad, and Govinda Maharaj standing on the side, humbly, sort of in the serving mood, And they had a close relationship. But, Srila Prabhupada said, I consider Govinda Maharaj my favourite son, and he said, oh no, take prasad, take prasad. And of course, no, he was feeling very, because now Swami Maharaj had become a great world acharya, and like that. And then he made a joke. Swami Maharaj said, oh, so, you're a Brahmin boy, and now I've been preaching in the West and mixing with so many mlechas and low-class people. You don't like to sit with me, And then he was, oh yes, of course, Then he sat down and took prasad. He was like joking, So it's always like that. You're going to have the absolute and the relative. This conception is very much stressed by Sridhar Maharaj, because it runs all through Krishna consciousness. Two things: relative and absolute conception, and achinta bheda bheda tattva, one and different. And it's everywhere, and it's in everything. And it's the only way to understand things and harmonize things. Otherwise, we can often get into trouble with misunderstanding about things. So, as Sridhar Maharaj said, You see, nobody, no one person, in any jiva soul even, how much empowered they are, they couldn't have complete knowledge. That's only belonging to Bhagavan, right? Bhagavan, the Lord himself, Krishna, Narayan, like that, possessor of all the knowledge. But does that mean then we can just scrap all the books of the world and all the knowledge and all the schools, universities and everything, because unless someone has complete 100% perfect knowledge, then they're not qualified to say anything or help others? No, it's not like that. What somebody has, to that extent, they can try to give that and help others with it, isn't it? You know, like a doctor said, if you go to your GP and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't help you because I've only studied this up to degree 5, you know, and there's people much higher than me." Of course, he might send them to such a person. That's also possible. Even we see in the case of spiritually, there are examples of gurus sending their disciples to other gurus who they consider higher than themselves. In the sense that I feel I've given you everything it's possible within my sort of account. Now to go further, go to this person. There have been, you know, cases like that, but they're usually very rare and quite highly spiritual cases. One in particular I'm thinking of, as you know, Shamananda Prabhu. He was initiated into Sakha Rasa by his guru. He was a cowboy, a friend of Krishna, and this is his service, and this is his dress, and this is his place of service, and so forth and so forth. And in going on like that, then one day Shamananda was sweeping the temple courtyard, and his brush or his leg or something touched something, and he picked it up, and as soon as he touched it, he became sort of like infused with a transcendental ecstatic current in Madhurya Rasa. He was actually a bangle, a broken bangle, and then it's a long story, but he was that way. The veil of Maya was opened, and in the transcendental realm, that bangle was belonging to, I think it was Radharani actually. I think it was Radharani. But anyway, so with this idea, he went to his guru and he said, "I'm feeling this tendency towards Krishna Seva, the service of Krishna, in the line of Radharani and the gopis and like that." But the guru became angry. He said, "No, I've initiated you in the Sakha Rasa, and this is this and this and this." So that was a difficult situation for some time. But then one part of the story was when he or somebody else put the bangle on his head like that, it became stamped with a tilak, vermilion colour, red colour, permanent, you know. He couldn't get it. That was one. And the other thing was that guru, he had a dream that Radharani came in the dream, said, "No, I want him for my service. You have to release him, you know." So he did so, of course. This is an example of the kind of rare case. So when in life and in our, you know, practice, we have to be aware of that. Anything we see or do, we can understand there is some immediate situation and something in the background, something behind always. And that's called vivek, you know, discrimination, spiritual discrimination. It's not the judgment or anything like that in the material sense. So that's from a relative point of view, who's serving Krishna, they are feeling that they're situated in the different rasas, right? But from the more absolute viewpoint, or they call tatashta vichar, if you take an objective view from neutral standpoint, you see there's a gradation ontologically in the relation Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. And of course, Madhurya rasa, the conjugal rasa, includes but transcends all the others. Inside Madhurya, there's Shanta, peacefulness. Lover and beloved are having a, just sitting on the couch in each other's company, Shanta. There's Dasya, serving each other. There's Sakya, friendship. There's Vatsalya. One is, as you say, as if looking after the other one in different ways, maybe in sickness or different situations, and Madhurya itself. So that includes all the previous. So each one, Shanta is Shanta Ras only. Dasya includes Shanta, but something more. It comes to service, And then Sakya is, when that service is intensified, it becomes the distinction between the server, who's serving and who is served, is dissolved. So as if they are equal in Sakya Rasa, like Krishna's friends, playing with him. And there are different levels within that also. Like you have those friends who are absolutely equal age of Krishna, so they're like friends, like mates, One's slightly younger. So they're friends, but it's some tinge of Dasya, because Krishna's older, like older brother. Then you have one slightly older, so then they are Sakya, but they're having slightly Vatsalya mood, protective mood to Krishna, And then they're the Priyanama Shakas, they are having connection with Madhurya Rasa. They go with Krishna for his pastimes with the girls and bringing messages, telling different things, sometimes supporting them, sometimes supporting Krishna, in different ways. So then Vatsalya is again intensified again, where not only there's apparent friendship and equality, but there's a sense of dependence. That Krishna is dependent on me, like mother, father. He's, I have to look after him, otherwise, how will he survive, like, Vatsalya Bhav, very intense. And then Madhurya means every aspect, as Guru Maharaj in his words, every atom of our being uniting with every corresponding atom of Krishna. Complete engagement. Yeah. But within that, from a relative viewpoint, who is situated in a certain rasa, they will think it's absolutely perfect, and it is absolutely perfect for them. That's their swarup. That is their perfected stage of service to Krishna. You cannot say to Hanuman, who's doing dasya of his Lord Ram, well, Vatsalya Bhav, Madhurya Bhav is, how could he think of that, He's Hanumanji, right? And etc. So that's more relative viewpoint, but both existing simultaneously. And in fact, there are, in different Puranas, there are, verses. There's one place in, I think it's the Brihan Naradiya Purana, where, for example, Krishna is glorifying Sakya Ras and saying, this is the best. And if you want to serve me, you must serve me in this way. And that was being related by Narad to someone. So those who are in that bhav, they will say, yeah, just see. It's in the Shastra. You can't deny it. Krishna telling right there, this is the best way for my service. But then again, so it's a bit like when Srila Prabhupada was travelling the world to the different temples that he had, and he'll go to one temple, like he'll go to London, and you say, oh, Radhanandaneshwar, they're the best deities. He had some particular affection, he installed them himself, first deities in the Western world. But then he'll go to Atlanta, and the beautiful Gauranitai deities say, oh, your deities are the best. And then those devotees will think, just see. Just see, Prabhupada said, you know, ultimately. So they would be very, very encouraged in their service. Or like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati himself was one day taking prasad, so many preparations, like on a feast day, and somebody asked, "Oh, Maharaj, which what preparation do you like the best?" And he said, "I like everything more than everything else." The spiritual conception. So, yeah, that's something else. That was his tendency and put so much salt on that they couldn't even take the remnants. It was like just salt, you know. But he had a nature, his own nature, something like that. So you know, again, this is another example, relative and absolute. So we acharya mam vijanyat navamanyeta karichit. Krishna says to Uddhava, don't think the acharya is a mortal, ordinary person, mortal being. He is myself. I am appearing in the form of the acharya. But at the same time, that's the absolute consideration. But from relative viewpoint, yeah, they have different natures, right? Some like salt, some like sweet. Some have a tendency to tapasya. When Sripad Maharaj was young, he used to sleep on the floor, like on the floor, maybe on the floor, or maybe a thin one of those bamboo mats or something, and just with the blanket and as a brick, you know, for a pillow. And he did that for several years when he was in his 50s. There's a photo of him like this. You might have seen it. Very thin, almost emaciated, Sripad Maharaj.
Oh, yeah.
In the 1950s, yeah. You know, so that was something that he was going through or experiencing or needed to do at that time. Eating just only potato and neem, like boiled neem, and it's very bitter, you know. Can't enjoy it, really. Like that. So for some purpose. Even in the Gita, Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you eat, whatever you give away, and whatever austerities you may perform, that's the general translation. Yat tapasyasi, konteya, tad kurushva madapanam. Whatever austerities or vows you take or penances, you do it as an offering to me. So that's individual. It's understood. So it's not monogamous. Everybody who's following Christian consciousness is all the same, and they all have to do exactly the same and do the same things. Some things are the same, like we're all chanting japa or kirtan and things like that. But there's no form, there's no mold that everybody can fit into, because the soul is individual, isn't it? Hare Krishna.
I have a question, Maharaj, about austerity. Like, sometimes I think I should do much more austerities or something, like to be a bit more like what you were saying. Srila Maharaj was laying on the bed and
Yeah.
a big pillow, and you know, and I think, wow, I'm always like looking a bit that I'm comfortable and.
Yeah, it's a question of two things: motivation and realization. Motivation, like why are you doing something? See, the goal always has to be Krishna consciousness, the satisfaction of Krishna, right? And Guru, Gauranga, and particularly Vaishnava. If one is fortunate to have more like direct service to a Vaishnava, a living Vaishnava, a Guru Vaishnava, that's very fortunate. Most of us don't really have that. We're just going along somehow, following Krishna consciousness, and trying to deepen our dedication to the process and to the way, or just even understanding what it is supposed to be about. Then that has to really come first, doesn't it? Before you start to practice. That's why theologically, it's sambandha, then abhideya, then prayojan. So first sambandha means an understanding, a theoretical, at least, understanding of Krishna consciousness. What does it mean? Who is Krishna? What is Maya? What is the Jiva soul? How they're related. Jiva to Krishna, Jiva to Maya, Maya to Krishna, etc. Then abhideya, a practice from that. You're practicing on the basis of that understanding. Otherwise, just following rules and regulations or something without understanding why you're doing it. Rules and regulations are important, but if just following without understanding just is fanaticism. It won't really get you anywhere. See, like even if you're playing tennis or cricket, there are rules. Otherwise it doesn't work. You have to have rules. This net is here and you must put the ball there and not there, etc. So everything like that, driving, there's rules, regulations, so many things. They're necessary. But the person who's driving, they have to know, well, I have to follow this because, for safety. Otherwise it's dangerous, I might harm someone or be harmed, etc. Yeah, so that's there, isn't it? In Upadeshamrita, Rupa Goswami says, the following of the rules and regulations too strictly, without understanding their purpose, is not good. That's actually debilitating to devotion, life of devotion. But not following them at all, or following them whimsically, like cherry picking. Well, this one's quite easy for me, so I'll do that, but that one I can't do that. So that also is not good. So it's not like signing up to a club and they say, well, this is the club and these are the rules and that's what you do, and you're either in or out. It's not like that. It's an understanding of the thing that we're approaching, and the whys and wherefores and everything.
And that's also many processes of devotion. They kind of why they're there because of our natural different natural tendencies.
Yes, you mean like hearing, chanting,
Some
remembering, yeah.
very well, but you won't go other.
Correct.
Well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah.
Lots of ways.
Yeah. Well, it is beautiful because there's nine angas, limbs of devotion. Prahlad Maharaj is teaching in hearing, chanting, remembering the Lord, serving, practical, service, worshipping the deity, which means can be understood as archana, meaning not just the deity in the temple. We have our picture, we have our something, our representation that we connecting with, and making friends with the Lord, and so But any of these individually can attain perfection.
Yes.
And there are examples there. Parikshit Maharaj attained perfection by hearing the Bhagavatam in the last 7 days of his life, and Shukadev by speaking. So that's Shravanam Kirtanam. So
and then some can combine few.
you combine few together, you see.
That's rare.
Yeah, that's generally, So if someone likes to chant, let them chant their way to Krishna, But you get some more like all-rounders, or combining them.
I think it's kind of Christian background, maybe still in a Western mind of mea culpa that you have to really go austerity to go to God's benefit of exchange with. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, right. She told me 1:30.
Anjali had a good point.
Very good.
She said life gives a lot of austerities where you have to go through, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, why do you want to?
When you rise,
Why do you want to create
you
them?
get to a certain age.
Yeah, cool.
Whether you're on a comfortable bed or not on a comfortable bed, austerity will present itself.
Yes,
And you will
absolutely.
tolerate.
Yeah.
No problem.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because by that time you should have learned the value of austerity.
Yes. That's totally. That's totally correct, and also becomes more internalized.
Yeah.
From the external physical austerity, then when you get to know your internal mechanisms, your mind, how it works, where Maya catches you with. There's one. I was reading this book here. Saraswati was saying the things that Maya uses to catch us. He mentioned hooks, chains, nets, and one other. I forget. So so always there. So then when we learn to know ourselves a bit better, then that's more like we're working in that level, sort of, as it were, yeah.
But I think also if you've been fortunate and had association in your younger life, well, not younger, older and older, you get to even appreciate some of the austerity you get and see it for,
Well, technically, according to Gita, yeah, the poison turns to nectar in the mode of goodness, and the mode of passion, the nectar turns to poison. Yeah, that's, of course, that's supposed to be the experience.
There were so many freedom fighters for like Gandhi's movement and to liberate India.
Anti-British.
And then he said, what do you want? Do you want to have freedom to enjoy the senses, or do you want to have freedom of the senses and get it all
From the
from the sense? So what you say, like. That is it. That's a freedom when you can so internalize everything, and that you deal with it, and in a good sense, of course. Like, okay, this is coming from the Lord, and I have to deal with affection, and then it is a freedom. That austerity.
Right.
Okay.
Are you doing the puja? Okay.
We do first.
Okay, yeah. Oh, the puja, yeah. Jai Srila Om Vishnupad Paramang Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Avirbhav Maha Mahotsavam Ki Jai. Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai.
Jai Sripad Swarup Tridandi Swami Ki Bhakti
Jai.
Sweet reminder.
How far?
Endure.
Yeah, but how far? Nothing goes like
You're not going, are you? Not yet.
Are you going to see you?
I'm tired.
I was on the train here and I said, maybe it's like a vaccine. My arm, I feel so if I was be big shit. I feel like it's strength. Everything's fine. You come into
I asked them to send it.
What's that?
Yeah, but they don't know.
I just don't think I want to crack up this one. You too much.
Sorry, that takes a problem.
You should do on Friday, because we need a on Friday. So we're going to go back to Oxford, because I've got finishing up graduating or something on Friday, on Saturday.
You've got your hat.
It's
here.
Please finish the PhD. Which one are we doing? This one is, but this one's for the deities.
Which one do you want?
What I want Not the way I want.
Which one
Just
do we take for that?
Sri Guru Charanapalma or Saraswati?
Well, you already did that. You already did that. For,
No, I said no. I didn't do that one. You did that one.
Sujanam.
No, I didn't do that. Oh, you can
No, you can do it.
Yeah, why don't you do it?
You have to do it again.
Well, it's quite long. Why don't you say? Yeah, Sri Guru Charan. Yeah, it's good. It's very good. Exactly. That's what you do.
So, before you then.
No, I'm not doing it. I know I can't sing it.
You can.
No, I don't know how to do it. You want to sing? Sri Guru Charan Padma?
Maharaj can sing.
Yeah, Maharaj will sing it. What page is it?
I bring you the book stand.
What page is it?
I
Yeah.
don't know, what do you know what page?
74.
Can you hold it, Maharaj? Shall I get a stand? What page is it?
74.
No, it would just be there in case I forget. No, no,
Yes.
you're wrong. Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Dhamma Shri Guru
He's the next preacher, right?
Yes, it is.
Jaya Sapai Kai Sisi Kuranga Radha Tridandi.
Sundar.
Wow.
Radha
What's that devotee's name? What's her name? What's her name? Saturday. Saturday,
Yeah.
hello. Those all those prayers that you chant at the end, where can I find them?
I will show you.
Yes. Are they in the are they in this book as well? Are they in?
No, this is the Kirtan guides. So this is the book where all the, but you can make a copy, right? Of that.
I photographed it on your phone. That's what I did.
Yeah. On your phone, you can make it on your
All
phone.
of the holiest that you did.
Yeah.
So that's in the Kirtan guide.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the one I just bought.
You've got, yeah.
Yeah.
I just got it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just bought it. I've got the new book, I've got this one.
Oh, that must be in there also.
So it should be in this one as well. Can you
Yeah.
have it just?
Yeah. Let me see. So strange.
It must be. I think it must be.
Yeah, here it is. So weird.
Can you look in this one, please?
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
I'm
They are here. It is here. This is here.
Right.
And I know I
Yeah,
don't.
I know this one, yeah.
Oh, yes. After the pictures, it is.
That's Jaya to Tridandi. I don't think it's Jaya, so that's brilliant.
Yeah. And here must be in the same spot. So, see?
Oh, right. Brilliant.
It's the same spot.
Oh,
Pictures.
Yeah.
Brilliant, yeah. And it's called Jaya.
Twani.
Yeah.
Jaya Twani.
Okay, thank
The
you.
Jai chants. Jai means like all glories to, and then all the gurus,
Yeah.
all the deities,
Yeah,
the,
right.
you know, all the gurus before.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
It's brilliant.
I just want, yeah. I want you to show those pictures you painted of Guru Maharaj to my friend
Oh, yeah, good, yeah.
later.
Oh, right.
They brought you, those pictures are powerful, they brought you to the feet.
Sorry?
They brought you to those feet, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Those pictures.
Well, no, I'll
More,
say it.
you were already there,
Yeah,
but in a position of wow. Good position.
yeah. Thank you.
They're wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. The pity you stopped doing anything doesn't mean you can still do it on your body. It's wonderful.
You done? I mean, eat.
You know, I have to clean it and then I
Do
come.
you need to help?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
You take the shower, please.
Going to see
I'm
Maharaj.
going. Yeah.
Don't clean this now.
No.
You know, leave it like this.
But I take this and I take the table away because the table
Yeah,
is
but the
only this.